Rural Canada's Dangerous Secrets, the 7 brutal rules every officer must follow at midnight. In the silent grip of a moonlit night, the chill of the air whispered secrets that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest souls. This was not just any countryside, but a realm where the peculiar intertwined with the ordinary, and where the darkness cradled treachery. Every shadow behind the trees held a tale, every rustle in the brush carried an unspeakable weight. The townsfolk said you could hear the screams of the misunderstood, or so it was rumored. Secrets ran thicker than the dense fog that wrapped its icy fingers around the old wooden cabins scattered like forgotten memories. Officer Sarah Daniels, a rookie in the small town of Pine Valley, stood at the edge of the looming forest, heart racing. She heard the stories. The local legends of disappearances, the people who ventured too far into the woods, never to return. The community was tough, resilient, but they wore haunted expressions as they glanced towards the trees after dusk. It felt as if the woods were watching, waiting. Her breath came in anxious puffs, visible in the frigid air, as she clutched her flashlight like a lifeline. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating hints of movement just beyond her sight. Then came the first strange element, a nightbird screeching, its call echoing like a woman's angry shout. A single sound that rose above the silence, strained and chilling. It sent a ripple through her gut, urging her instincts to pay attention. It was said that the woods held lost souls, guardians of secrets too dreadful to share. The lore spoke of a place beyond the town, a boundary crossed only by those brave enough or reckless enough to seek out the hidden horrors that lay in wait. Pine Valley didn't just have rules, it had unspoken laws that enforced a kind of primal order when night fell. There were 7 of them, whispered among the officers, sacred yet brutal. Sarah had barely learned them, but the weight of their significance pressed down on her, tightening like a noose. She swallowed hard, the lump in her throat tangling with her restless mind. She recalled the sour, distraught face of her partner, Officer James, when he warned her just hours before, at midnight, keep your eyes open, for both friends and foes. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And just as Sarah prepared to call in for backup, her radio crackled to life with static, the kind that made the hair stand up on her neck. It cut through the pervasive silence like a knife, announcing her worst fear. Someone was missing. Dread pooled in her stomach as she heard the crack in the dispatcher's voice. We have a 911 call, a child, last seen near the old mill. Officer, you need to respond. Adrenaline shot through her veins as she took a step forward, leaving behind the tiny flicker of comfort that the town provided. What had she gotten into? Every instinct screamed for her to turn back, to retreat under the safety of the blinking streetlights that now felt miles away. But the whispers of the woods called louder, luring her closer. What lurked in those shadows? The rules juggled in her mind, every single one an ominous beacon of warning. Before she could second-guess herself, she plunged into darkness, compelled by duty, wrapped in uncertainty. The woods were hungry tonight, she could almost feel them breathe, and as she moved deeper, she couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. What awaited her just beyond the trees? What truth was lurking, ready to unveil the secrets of Pine Valley? The shadows swallowed Sarah as she ventured deeper into the forest, her flashlight flickering like a dying ember. The air thickened, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something more unsettling, like decay, or long-buried memories clawing to the surface. Her heart thudded in her chest, a frantic drumbeat that mirrored her rising fear. Stay calm, she whispered to herself, attempting to drown out the oppressive quiet. There's a child out there. With every step, the branches above intertwined like gnarled fingers, blocking out what little moonlight had remained. She felt lost, ensnared in a web of darkness, unsure if she was searching for a missing child or wandering deeper into the abyss of Pine Valley's secrets. The dispatch call echoed in her mind. Child, old mill. What was it about that place that drew people in, only to spit them back out in pieces? The radio on her belt crackled again, the static sharper this time, almost urgent. Officer Daniels, do you copy? The familiar voice of the dispatcher jolted her back to reality. Copy, she replied, her voice trembling. Heading towards the old mill. No visual on the child yet. Be careful. We had reports of strange sounds and disturbances in that area. No one knows what lives in those woods at night. Understood. She cut the transmission short, her instincts flaring. Strange sounds. She heard the stories, deformed creatures, spirits of the lost. Was the legend true, or just a relic of local folklore? As she moved forward, the underbrush cracked underfoot like brittle bones. Every rustle felt amplified, and she couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. Suddenly, a rustle in the branches ahead caught her attention. Her heart raced. Gripping her flashlight, she swept the beam toward the sound. Nothing. Just the trees swaying, whispering secrets in tongues only they understood. It was frustrating had she imagined it. But a panic snapped her back. She realized she had drifted off the path. The antique mill should have loomed large in the distance, but all that surrounded her was a thick fog, blurring her bearings. Just when doubt crept in, its silhouette emerged darker and looming. The worn structure of the old mill stood before her like a specter from another time. She stepped closer. The door was ajar, hanging loosely on rusted hinges, revealing darkness within, shadowed threats lingering like permeating fog. Hello. She called cautiously, her voice swallowed whole by the encompassing silence. Is anyone here? Is there a child? The only response was a distant echo, a whisper that slithered through the chill, uninvited and unnerving. Sarah took a breath, battling the unease cocooning her thoughts. She had to move, had to find the child. Just as she stepped forward, a flicker of movement caught her eye to the left. She swung her flashlight, catching a fleeting glimpse, a pair of eyes glowing in the dark, reflecting her light like mirrored pools. Frozen, Sarah felt the chill of dread claw deeper into her veins. The eyes belonged to something more than just a lost child. They were alive, but not human. Suddenly, guttural motes of sound began to rise around her, a chaotic symphony of whispers, taunting her. The rules, panic surged through her as she turned to flee, but she had trespassed too far, hadn't she? The rules were not just for the night, they were for any who dared enter, and the woods had their own way of enforcing them. She stumbled backward, heart hammering, torn between flight and the need to uncover the truth. Before she knew it, the darkness closed in tighter, and she could no longer tell where the mill ended and the woods began. In that moment, dread coursed through her, forcing her to confront the truth. Whatever was hidden in these woods had no intention of allowing her to escape unscathed. What was lurking beyond the shadows, waiting for her next move? And how far would she go to rescue the child trapped in this nightmare? Sarah's breath quickened, a shallow gasp caught in her throat as she staggered back, eyes darting to the shadows. There was a rustle, a whisper against the wind, that cut through the tension like a knife. The eyes, those piercing eyes, flickered away and then reappeared, closer now, as if they were tasting the terror she radiated. She gripped her flashlight tighter, its beam cutting through the fog, but even the light seemed to be swallowed by the oppressive darkness. This isn't real, she muttered under her breath, as much for reassurance as for clarity. I'm just tired. A sudden shriek echoed from somewhere deeper in the woods, a high-pitched wail that sent butterflies of horror fluttering in her stomach. It was the sound of desperation, a sound she recognized, the sound of a child in distress. Her heart surged with purpose, but each ounce of courage was countered by an instinctual scream demanding her to run. Focus, she whispered fiercely to herself, her skin prickling. She had to find the source of that cry. The need to protect, to help overpowered her primal fear, propelling her forward. One foot in front of the other, she moved toward the mill, now an insidious landmark in her mind. Inside the mill, the air stank of old wood and something else, something sharp and metallic, like blood but somehow forgotten. The beam from her flashlight illuminated cobwebs that clung to the rafters like aged memories. She took another cautious step as the door creaked ominously behind her, swinging shut on its own as if sealing her fate. "Hello." The sound of her voice echoed back, mocking her. "Is anyone here?" "I'm a police officer." Silence. Just the steady drip of water somewhere deep inside the structure. The sensation of being watched returned, crawling across her skin. Every instinct screamed that she should leave, but the desperate cry of the child quelled that fear. Then came the laughter, the kind that sent chills down her spine. It was high and shrill, echoing from layers of darkness, deeper within the mill's bowels. "Look, look, look!" it taunted, a chorus of voices throwing her off balance. The rules, suddenly, the glimpses came quicker now, a dance of shadows flitting just beyond her flashlight's reach. Formless shapes, grinning ghastly smiles, weaving through the darkness. The whispers twisted into one unified voice, calling to her, beckoning. "Sarah, Sarah," the voices intoned with an intimate familiarity, as if they knew her very soul. The hairs on her neck stood on end. "You've come. You've broken the first rule. Now you must decide what to give." "What?" she cried, her hands trembling. "I don't understand. Where's the child?" But the laughter only grew louder, mocking her urgency. She turned, her back pressed firmly against the wall, desperately scanning for any means of escape. In that instant, she knew she had crossed a line, entering a realm where logic faltered and darkness thrived. "Help!" The cry rang out again, raw and close, cutting straight through the laughter. The voice was unmistakably human now. "Please. Help me." She hesitated. Who could she trust in this nightmarish place? Should she follow that voice or be cautious of the threats slithering around her? The urge to help clawed at her insides, but shadows writhed at the edges of her vision, ready to pounce should she choose poorly. That a chilling decision loomed. Would she risk everything for a child she had never seen, or would she heed the shifting warnings of the mill, the sinister rules echoing in her mind? As that final thought crashed against her, a figure emerged from the shadows near the old wooden steps. It was small, tiny, and trembling under a cloak of dread, the child she had been searching for, but something was wrong. Its face appeared twisted, pale like the moonlight and yet murky, as if caught between worlds, and then came the voice, ethereal and hollow. "You found me, but what will you sacrifice?" The weight of that question hung heavy as terror clawed deeper into Sarah's chest. What did the woods want from her? She took a tentative step forward, caught between salvation and an unseen doom. Somewhere in the distance, the laughter resumed, louder this time, filling the mill with a haunting melody that resonated with the very essence of dread. What were the true rules of the forest? And what would they demand from her next? The child's voice echoed in the emptiness of the mill, a haunting melody that sent Sarah's heart racing. What will you sacrifice? The question twisted in her mind like a thorn. Sweat trickled down her back, seeping into her uniform. She couldn't tolerate the thought of losing the child, of losing anyone else to the forest's sinister grasp. "Please, I'll do anything," she shouted, her courage igniting in defiance of the gathering shadows. The thing that looked like a child flinched as if recoiling from her words. Its face, pale and distorted, seemed to melt back into the darkness. "Anything?" it breathed, mocking her desperate tone. Then the air around Sarah vibrated, thrumming with the laughter of unseen figures. The floors creaked, groaning under a weight that felt too heavy to bear, an unseen pressure resting upon her. "Don't listen." A voice echoed from behind her, a whisper cutting through the mocking laughter. Sarah spun, her flashlight sweeping across a corner cloaked in shadows. A flash of movement. She wasn't alone. A man stepped into the weak light, his face gaunt, eyes sunken. "You can't trust it," he warned, his voice ragged like dried leaves. "You have to leave now before it's too late." Who are you? Panic thrummed in her veins. She instinctively took a step back toward the child, the haunting gaze pulling her in. Just someone who was once like you. He fidgeted nervously, glancing over his shoulder, dread etched into every wrinkle of his face. I came here to save a child, and look how it turned out for me. His gaze fell to the floor, shame washing over him. Then help me. Sarah's voice cracked, desperation lodging like a stone in her throat. Where's the real child? What do I need to give? He shook his head vigorously. Gifts come with a price here. He exclaimed, a bit of mania sparking in his eyes. You don't know what it'll demand. The shadows thickened as they closed in, filling the mill with a suffocating presence. The child, if it even was a child, giggled softly, a sound that chilled Sarah's core. Help me, the voice was syrupy, dripping with malice and charm. You'll be rewarded if you play by the rules enough. She shouted, clenching her fists. She was growing tired of the games. I'll do what it demands. Just tell me what you want. The second the words left her lips, a collective gasp reverberated in the air, as if the very shadows disapproved. The man lunged forward, eyes wide with panic, grabbing her arm. No, Sarah, don't say that. You don't know what you're inviting. But the laughter escalated, obliterating all reason. You asked to play, Sarah. Now choose. The place around her began to jiggle and pulse, and the twisted child raised a hand, beckoning. The floor beneath her trembled, and she could feel the very walls closing in. Memories flickered through her mind, faces of those she'd lost, the toll of duty heavy on her heart. Could it be them? Was this the way to bring them back? Sacrifice your past or lose your future. The voices screeched, sharp and cruel. The air crackled with an otherworldly energy, twisting her heart into knots. Sarah took a deep breath, locking eyes with the distorted face before her. She had to decide, had to choose a fate that would either save or damn everything she had ever known. Could she really offer her past, her memories, to seal a deal with this darkness? The laughter echoed, resonating in her bones. Suddenly, shadows broke apart, swirling like a storm building in the distance. Reaching outward, they coiled around her like tendrils. The air thickened with malice. Choose quickly, Sarah. The man shouted, voice barely cutting through the cacophony. Time stood still. One last breath before the plunge. What was she willing to lose, and what would it demand from her next? The shadows swirled around Sarah, tightening their grip until she felt the weight of them crushing her lungs. The distorted child remained at the center of the chaos, its smile taunting her with sadistic glee. What will it be, Sarah? It crooned, each word dripping with an anticipation that sent chills racing down her spine. In that heart-stopping moment, images flashed in her mind, the faces of her family, friends lost to the unyielding grasp of the forest. They whispered to her from the void, shadows themselves, begging her to remember what was at stake. She had to focus. I'll give my memories. She finally blurted, her voice barely above a whisper, a flicker of hope battling against despair. The man beside her gasped in horror, and again the child giggled, the sound ringing cruelly like glass shattering. Such courage! It sang out, and the shadows twisted further, ravenous. But you must choose wisely. What memory will you part with first? What moment will you surrender? Sarah's heart raced. She felt the life she had, each laugh, each tear slipping away from her grip. Not all of them. Just the painful ones. As the words spilled from her lips, the mill shook violently. The laughter transformed into a cacophony of enraged spirits, swirling and writhing with an urgency that made her head spin. Choose. The man's voice was frantic now, but she could barely hear him over the storm of sound. The walls began to crack, splinters shooting outwards like daggers. With every painful recollection she offered a lost birthday, the last time she heard her mother's laugh, something deeper within her extinguished, fading like smoke. The mill itself seemed to shudder, pulsating as if it were alive, as if it was feeding off her anguish. More. The child demanded, its voice an unholy mix of sweetness and horror. We want more. Sarah clutched her head, the memories turning dark and viscous, bogging her down in terror. Please no more. She cried, but the shadows didn't relent. They demanded satisfaction. In the throes of desperation, Sarah seized the first moment she could. I'll give you the moment they died. She screamed, her breath coming in frantic gasps, the taste of bile sour in her throat. Instantly, a great rift tore through the air, pulling the shadows into a swirling vortex, the laughter mingling with anguished cries that reverberated against her chest. Memories spun out of her, so vivid and sharp that they felt almost tangible before they vanished into the dark. The forest erupted into chaos outside the mill as others echoed her sacrifice, the grounds trembling with their restlessness. She could feel the thrumming of their collective pain in her bones. Is this what you wanted? She shouted into the storm. The shadows recoiled, a hollow silence blooming where their laughter once thrived. Your past is now ours. The child's voice hissed from the depths, mocking her resolve. But you shall pay for that price in ways you can't yet understand. Just then, a crack of lightning illuminated the darkness, and in that brief flash, Sarah caught a glimpse of what lay behind the child, a sprawling labyrinth of memories, a prison of lost souls, caught between time and sorrow. The thought paralyzed her. Enough. The man cried, and for the first time, he stepped forward, challenging the shadows. You're making a mistake, Sarah. Don't let it feed off your pain. Too late. The darkness pulsed with satisfaction, reveling in her sacrifice. She could feel threads of fear and despair weaving through the air, tightening their grip around her heart. The ground beneath her trembled, rattling her resolve as she felt time slipping away, turning into a nightmare she couldn't escape. Now, what will you really give? Her mind raced. What was left to lose? And as dread washed over her, the reality set in. Could she even trust the child or the man any longer? What if this was only the beginning? The mill screamed with anger, its timbers groaning under the weight of a curse that echoed through the air. As the shadows coiled closer, Sarah's heart hammered like a war drum. The man's eyes widened with desperation, as if he sensed the storm of darkness closing in on them both. Stay strong. He shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Don't let it take over. But it all felt so hopeless. Sarah could already feel pieces of her slipping away. She looked at the child, eyes wild with a mix of fear and fury. What do you want from me? She demanded, her voice shaking but defiant. The child's grin widened, and Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. More memories, more pain. Sweet, twisted memories. The shadows churned restlessly, their intent clear. They craved the rawness of her fear, her regrets, they hungered for her suffering. Her breath quickened with dread. I gave you the worst. Isn't that enough? Nonsense. The child squeaked, its high-pitched voice ringing with malice. You've barely tasted the darkness this world offers. The shadows whirled in anger, and Sarah braced herself, clenching her fists. If the memories she had given were just the beginning, what could they strip from her next? Everything is at stake. Sarah's resolve hardened. If she was going to sacrifice herself, she would do it on her terms. I'll give you my fear. Suddenly, a silence fell over the mill, thick and oppressive, as if even the shadows had paused, bewildered by her boldness. The child tilted its head, a glimmer of interest crossing its terrifying features. You think that will appease us? Fear is just the surface. The ground vibrated beneath her, the shadows undulating like a wounded beast. You want my fear? Fine. I fear for the moment my father left me behind. I fear never finding closure, never hearing my mother's voice again. The shadows surged, eagerly sucking in her words. Each confession felt like a raw wound exposed to the elements, but she pressed on, determined. I fear that I will never escape this place. I fear that all hope is lost. The vortex expanded, twisting with her words like a tapestry woven from pain. She felt it, a heavy shadow dragging at her essence, threatening to consume her. Yet there was power in her voice, a fierceness that surged from somewhere deep within her. The child's laughter rang again, sharp and unsettling. Delicious. You're twisting this so delightfully. But even as it reveled, something shifted. The shadows recoiled slightly, releasing their grip. But it will never be enough. The mill shuddered violently as the forces clashed. Sarah fought to breathe, sensing the tide turning. You underestimate me, she gasped, desperation fueling her will. I have so much more to give. The shadows laughed, their derision echoing louder. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah stepped boldly forward. I'll give you my defiance. The air crackled as the words left her lips, igniting an eruption of spirit within her. The shadows momentarily faltered, uncertain. She could feel strength pooling in her chest, a light kindling against the overwhelming darkness. Yet, just as the edge of hope broke through, the child's eyes glimmered with dark mischief. Defiance? So brave. But do you truly comprehend the cost? The ground trembled again, shifting beneath her feet as the shadows reformed, angrier than before. Fear seeped back into the cracks, and for a heartbeat, she felt herself falter. What if this was a mistake? As if in response, the flickering light around her dimmed, and the room grew colder. The voice of the man broke through her thoughts, panicked and desperate. Sarah. They're closing in, you must trust me now. A pulse of dread surged through her. What if she had made a grave error? Was there any turning back? But before she could decide, the child's voice rang out again, a menacing whisper. You think you can outsmart us, dear Sarah? Think again, you may find the cost is far more than you're willing to pay. The shadows lurked closer, hungry, and as doubt seeped through her, she realized that her next move could determine whether she escaped this nightmare or became yet another prisoner in their twisted web. What if the child wasn't the only threat? What if the man was hiding secrets of his own? The shadows pressed in tighter, thick as smoke, swirling with a hunger that felt alive. Sarah's heart raced, pounding like a restless beast against her ribs. She could sense the child's glee, a sickening delight in her turmoil. Who was this creature, and what darkness had it seethed from? Do you feel it? The child's voice dripped with wickedness. The shadows, they are whispering your soul to me. You think you can defy them? No. Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the growing dread. She willed herself to stand firm, to harness the power of her emotions rather than let them consume her entirely. You won't take me. But deep inside, a seed of doubt sprouted. She remembered the man's frantic warning. What was it that he knew? What secrets danced between them if any? As if sensing her wavering, the child leaned closer, its smile a grotesque reflection of malice. By clinging to your defiance, you're merely feeding the beast. It taunted, the shadows pulsing with its every word. The air grew heavy, thick enough to choke. The mill creaked ominously, groaning under the strain of the dread that enveloped it. Shadows licked at her feet, searching for any weakness, any slip in her resolve. Sarah. The man's voice cut through the haze, strained and urgent. You need to fight together. Our memories are our strongest weapons. What are you talking about? She cried, eyes darting between him and the child, desperate for answers. What do you know? That darkness, it feeds on isolation. Let me share your pain. Trust me. His words pressed against her, heavy yet filled with a flicker of hope. You think I'll trust you? The child shrieked, its laughter piercing like shards of glass. You, trapped with me forever, why would I trust a thing you say? Attrition gnawed at the edges of Sarah's spirit. Each moment felt like a test of endurance, pushing her closer to the brink. Clutching her chest, she steeled herself with her thoughts. A wave of memories crashed over her, flooding her senses. The joyous moments spent in sunlit fields, the laughter that once filled her home. They were not merely memories, they were her lifeline. She felt the walls of terror tighten, but she would not crumble. You want memories? She shouted defiantly. Let us share them. My laughter, my light. You'll choke on them before you eat my fear anymore. With each word, flickers of light burst like fireflies within her. The shadows recoiled, writhing as if in pain, their hunger clashing against her defiance. More. More. The child howled, eyes wild with desperation as it realized what was happening. Feed us your essence. It's your last chance to escape this. No. Sarah shouted back, feeling a surge of might. I want to let you twist my memories into despair. You want my essence? Then you'll have to earn it with the weight of my joy. As she spoke, the vibrations of the mill shifted, her strengthening light pushed against the shadows, forcing a respite. But doubt lingered, echoes of unresolved fears gnawed at her mind. Was the man truly an ally? Or another puppet in the child's game? With a final surge, she took a step forward, ready to challenge the darkness once more. Enough of your games. I choose to stand and fight. Yet, a chilling whisper escaped the child's lips, eerily calm amid the chaos. Fighting blooms into terrifying consequences. You haven't seen your fullest potential yet, dear Sarah. What had she awakened within herself? What darkness lay hidden in her own memories, waiting to be unleashed? The shadows quaked as Sarah's proclamation hung in the air, reverberating through the mill like thunder. Her light was a beacon, but the darkness was relentless, swirling in a colicky storm that threatened to swallow her whole. The child's laughter pierced the tense atmosphere, sharp and unsettling. Do you really believe you can fight me? It jeered, its eyes narrowing, gleaming with an ominous light. You are an insect, and I am the boot that will crush you. You don't even know who you are. Every syllable it uttered twisted in Sarah's gut, but she refused to back down. I'm not afraid of you. As the words surged from her lips, memories flickered brighter within her, a childhood home filled with warmth, the feel of grass between her toes, laughter shared with friends. Those moments were her armor, and she couldn't let the child desecrate them, but as she dug into her mind, seeking the memories that fortified her, she found something else, darker, deeper horrors, long buried. The sound of raging storms, the feel of cold metal pressing against her skin, shadows of betrayal lurking just beyond reach. The child's taunting voice slipped inside her, whispering doubts in a soft, seductive tone. You think your joy can save you? What happens when it flickers out? The mill shuddered around her, a symphony of creaks and moans, the very structure echoing her rising fear. Lost in a tide of memories, Sarah felt the pull of despair. But then, a fire lit within, a flicker amidst the darkness. You don't have the power over my spirit. It's mine. The shadows writhed, and she caught a glimpse of the man, still standing firm, a lifeline in her sea of chaos. Sarah, remember, your strength lives in your connections. Your pain is not solitary, we fight as one. Together, they could weave a defense against the growing shadows. With renewed resolve, Sarah let her light break free, a golden thread binding her to laughter and warmth, to love and resilience. Let us do this. She yelled, her voice resounding like a battle cry. The child recoiled, a grimace etching its face. No. You cannot resist. Without hesitating, she extended her hand toward the man. His eyes are a steady blaze, unyielding in their depth. He grasped her hand in a firm shake, anchoring her to this moment as if forging a new bond between them. Suddenly, a wave of heat radiated from their joined hands, cascading out like ripples across water. Light flared, filling the room, illuminating corners long lost to shadow. It surged forth, wrapping around her, and she felt the shadows retreat, hissing like a wounded creature. But as they pressed on together, darker whispers echoed in her mind, chilling warnings like rattling chains. You're awakening something worse. Do you truly understand what lies within? Sarah's heart raced as the shadows began to writhe more violently, a monstrous embodiment of their fear now unleashed. What have I done? She gasped, panic stalking her thoughts. Do not let it in. The man yelled, his grip tightening. We hold it at bay. Don't waver. Their light was fierce, pushing back against the angry shadows, but the undercurrent of foreboding gnawed at Sarah's core. A palpable tension brewed, uncertainty shrouding their combined strength. As they fought, a realization dawned: had they merely awoken a greater malevolence? Above the chaos, the child's laughter erupted again, quieter but far more chilling. You think this is victory? You don't understand the darkness that lurks within you. You've only skimmed the surface. What lay ahead? Sarah's resolve hardened. We've come too far to turn back now. Yet, doubt seeped into the corners of her mind. What lay beyond this fight? What had they truly unleashed? The shadows gathered, thick and demanding, pressing down with newfound ferocity. Just when Sarah thought she had clarity, an eerie silence enveloped them, thick as fog. And then, a voice, dark, familiar, chilling. Welcome home. What unspeakable truth awaited her? Sarah felt the weight of that voice, suffocating, wrapping around her like a swift noose. It held a truth she had buried deep inside, but now it emerged from the shadows, clawing its way free. The man beside her tightened his grip, a lifeline against her spiraling fear. Stay strong. He urged, his unwavering resolve emboldening her. We're not alone in this. But even with his words echoing comfort, her heart hammered like wild drumming in her chest. The air crackled with the electric charge of looming danger. Each shadow lurked with a hunger, as if it could sense her rising dread. Who are you? She whispered, glaring into the murky gloom where the voice had come from. What do you want with me? The child's laughter, that sinister melody, danced through the darkness, wrapping around her like a cobweb. Oh, dear Sarah, I am the voice of your past, a shadow of your own making. Your fears, your regrets, they fuel my power. You awakened me. With every syllable, Sarah's memories strained against her, clawing to escape as panic surged. The betrayal she had thought forgotten was now a roaring fire, consuming her with guilt. Images of faces contorted in fear, the echo of screams she couldn't escape them. Focus. The man shouted, his words slicing through the rising tide of despair. It's just a trick. Those memories don't define you. But they were real. They bled, seeping into her subconscious as she felt herself teetering towards darkness. The mill itself felt alive, its wood groaning under the weight of the malice in the air. The shadows clutched at her ankles, cold and heavy, whispering secrets she wished she could ignore. No. You must remember the light. He yelled, urgently. Sarah inhaled sharply, forcing her gaze at the shadows, refusing to let them swallow her whole. I didn't come this far to be turned back, she declared through clenched teeth. Suddenly, the darkness stuttered, jerking back. For that brief moment, the shadows faltered, uncertainty rippling through them as if they had been struck by her unwavering will. The man's eyes sparkled with an encouraging fire, pushing her to fight. You're the sum of your strength. Not just pain. He shouted, taking a deep breath. Sarah plunged deeper into her memory, searching not for anchors of fear but for fragments of hope. She envisioned the faces of those who had believed in her, those who had offered her kindness and love, the savors of joy that still flickered like embers within her. Together. She urged. We can fight this. They stood together, palms pressed tight, as a luminous light erupted between them. It pulsed and swelled, scattering the shadows like leaves before a strong wind. For an instant, clarity broke through. Memories poured out of laughter, safety, warmth. They harmonized, forming a shield that encased her, but the child's laughter arose again, low and chilling, slicing through the strength of their combined light. You think this will save you? You're merely delaying the inevitable. You tread deep into the waters of your despair. With a shudder, the shadows thrashed violently, spewing darker tendrils of fear and regret. The voice of her past was rising, becoming a storm, whispering fears that clawed at the very edges of her resolve. Sarah felt herself faltering just as the man beside her let out a roar, his energy pushing against the encroaching darkness. "Stand your ground!" he bellowed, and at that moment, she realized the fight wasn't just against shadows. It was against the parts of herself that she had feared the most, but as she locked eyes with the child, that chilling smirk carving its way across its features, a new flicker of doubt sparked. What other secrets had she buried? What haunted truths lay deeper in the darkness, waiting to be unearthed? Just then, the oppressive shadow thickened around her, enveloping them in a pulsating blackness, shadowing everything she thought she knew. And then she heard it, a soft, insistent voice, echoing from beyond. What would you sacrifice to uncover the truth? What price was she willing to pay? Sarah squeezed the man's hand tighter, a lifeline woven of determination as the darkness threatened to swallow them whole. The child's aura pulsed with malevolence, a twisted smile spreading across its face. So brave, sweet Sarah. But bravery can be so fleeting. Shut up! She shouted back, her voice stronger than her trembling insides. You don't know me. You don't own my past. The shadows recoiled as she hurled her words into the chaos, agitating the very essence of darkness that encircled them. The urge to flee weighed heavy, instinct pulling at her like a desperate tide. But when she thought of the child's haunting voice, pleading from the depths, she steadied herself. Those shadows wanted her to break, to surrender her light and fade into nothingness. But she was not alone in this fight. Light warmth. The man beside her shouted, his desperation igniting her resolve further. That's what we can give. Together, we can pierce the shadows and reclaim what's ours. He locked gazes with her, sharing unspoken understanding. They were allies, standing against the gathering storm. She drew strength from their joined hands, the light between them surging bright enough to illuminate the dim recesses of the mill. With the murky memories at her back, Sarah took a deep breath, the air heavy with anticipation. What you feel are the remnants of the past. They won't define me anymore. The shadows writhed and twisted, furious against her defiance. You think you can simply rewrite your story? You think innocence remains untouched? The child cackled, its voice dripping with dread and sorrow. Inside, a flicker of fear sparked. What darkness lay hidden within? She steeled herself, forcing her thoughts back to her memories, each laugh, each tear, every lesson learned. If she was to conquer this night, she had to confront the truth. The shadows coveted her guilt and her fears, tried to bend her spirit into submission. They could only thrive if she allowed them to. Bring it on! She yelled, her voice echoing against the mill's weathered beams. I'll take every memory you want to offer, but when I do, I'll shape them. I'll own my past, not the other way around. There was reality in her words, a newfound understanding that resonated deep within her soul. The oppressive darkness paused, the shadows shifting like disturbed insects. No. You think you can defy the rules? You misunderstand the game. The child's face twisted into an expression of fury, eyes narrowing dangerously. This ends now. She declared, determination spilling forth, flowing from the very depths of her being. She turned to the man beside her, their light merging, swelling to a blinding glow. Together. The air surged, electric with energy, vibrating with the power they both held. Let us swap our pain for illumination. She shouted, her heart racing as they began to move as one. The shadows screeched, desperate and enraged. You will pay for this. They lashed out, sharp as daggers, but Sarah met the dark tendrils with light. As each memory flicked through her mind, she filled it with warmth, laughter transforming wounds into strength. Remember the laughter of those you love, the man urged, turning toward her. We're not just fighting back, we're manifesting hope, cleansing our past. With each step they took, the swirling darkness buckled under the relentless stream of warmth. They chased the shadows deeper into the mill. You don't control us. she declared, her voice rising above the chaos. "I will forge my path." The child shrieked in fury as they advanced, shadows flickering like dying embers. Just when it seemed the darkness would consume them, the connection they shared ignited. Suddenly, that torrent of memories erupted forth, laughter, tears, every moment they cherished condensed into a relentless blaze. It washed over the shadows, illuminating the darkness and igniting something fierce and raw. Light met shadow, creating a symphony and echoing chorus of defiance, and the shadows began to shred apart. In a blinding flash, the shadows collapsed, their grip disintegrating beneath the force of their unity. The floor trembled beneath their feet, splintering as the fabric of darkness unraveled, revealing a path wrapped in light. But as the shadows withdrew, one final blast of energy shot from the child, infectious and wrought with intent. "You think this is the end? You'll regret this." The voice echoed, sharp and chilling, before the last vestiges of the darkness fluttered away, flickering like fragile candlelight. Breathless and expelling a long-held sigh, Sarah leaned into the man beside her. The memory of darkness faded into whispers, leaving her heart racing but full of hope. We did it." Yet a part of her hesitated. What remained behind? Was the past truly liberated? The air buzzed outside, the soft hush of the woods now fully engulfed in silence. With newfound determination, she took a step forward, the light guiding her way, eager yet cautious. "We must get out before it returns," she breathed, the shadows slithering back, shadows that might wait for another moment of weakness. Together, they stepped beyond the threshold of the mill, the cool night air washing over them like a balm. As they emerged, the moon-bathed Pine Valley in luminous silver light. Sarah looked back, knowing the woods held secrets still, but she wasn't afraid anymore. Not as long as she had the strength to fight. "Always remember this night," she whispered, turning to her newfound ally. "Tonight, we reclaimed power over our fears. It's our story to write from here." And as they walked away, the whispering woods fell silent, but a flicker of hope remained within them. Whatever haunted the darkness would have to reckon with the resilience of two souls who dared to embrace their light. Now, dear friends, if you relish this wild ride, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support because the story doesn't end here. Your like can propel us forward, so smash that button. Flood the comments and let us know your theories about Sarah's next chapter. But don't wait even one more second to share this experience with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us keep the stories coming.